Hello and welcome to Take 53. I'm your host, Carol Frausto. Today joining me will be Sally Brennan. She is the Executive Director of Cupertino Community Services. We'll be discussing the unique services that are offered and a serious problem that is hitting close to home. So please stay tuned for Take 53.
It's coming from the government, the free consumer information catalog from Pueblo, Colorado. It knows about your money, health, federal benefits. It could be coming to you.
It's here! The free consumer information catalog we sent for, plus the free sample booklet.
Send your name and address to Catalog Plus, Pueblo, Colorado, 81009. Hurry.
The forest is home to many living things. That's why, if you're careless with fire when you go to the forest, you could burn a lot more than trees.
Welcome back to Take 53. I'm Carol Frausto, and today we will be focusing on an organization that is actively working to meet the basic service needs of members of our community. And joining me is Sally Brennan. She is the Executive Director of Cupertino Community Services. Sally, thanks for joining me today.
I'm glad to be here.
Now, first of all, can you tell me what is the primary objective of Cupertino Community Services?
It sounds really simple. It's to meet the unmet human service needs in the community.
Okay. Now, is this organization only for community Cupertino residents?
Our service area includes Cupertino and West San Jose. We serve West San Jose because of United Way funding, and then we operate the REACH program for the Salvation Army, and we serve Saratoga, Los Gatos, Montecito, and Cupertino for the REACH program, which is a program for assistance with PG&E.
I see. Now, can you just go into a little background on how your program actually works?
You want my spiel?
Yes.
Okay. Our main service is emergency assistance, and people who are facing some kind of emergency or crisis can call in, and we either give them direct assistance, which would be food or vouchers for food or vouchers for gasoline for transportation, job referrals, maybe vouchers for medical needs such as a prescription, and help with clothing. Sometimes we even match up furniture with people that have needs, or if it's a service, an emergency need that we can't meet, we refer them to the particular agency that does meet that need, such as if a person calls in who knows that their neighbor's children are being abused and she doesn't know what to do or who to turn to, then we will tell her what the procedures are and who she should call and how she can go about helping that particular neighbor.
I see. Now, do you put a limit on the amount of times that people can come back in for a visit?
Yeah, it is emergency assistance, so that means 2 or 3 times in a 6-month period they can come in for vouchers. If a person is in particular need and needs extra help, we do make some exceptions, but if they need ongoing assistance, we refer them to the agencies that do that because it's more appropriate. We have rather limited resources.
Do you often get people that are from outside of your area?
Not too often because of our screening process. We get referrals from churches, from social service agencies, from the schools, from neighbors, and a word of mouth. And ordinarily, people who call in, we find out where they live before they come to us. The only people that we help that are from outside our service area are the homeless. And sometimes they will refer someone from the shelter who needs a little bit of food or clothing, and we'll help them that one time. If they're not from our area, it's a one-time only service.
I see. How many people do you serve in a month?
It depends from month to month. Last month in August was our biggest month, and we served 515 individuals with emergency assistance and around 200 information referral calls, which isn't quite accurate because we were so busy that I'm sure we didn't record all the calls that come in. We are the office support for the recycling center, and so we get a lot of calls from residents asking when the hours are, what the recycling center is taking. So that's some of our information and referral calls. And then we provide rides for seniors, and so we get calls from the senior center from Melissa O'Neill, who is their case management worker, and provide rides. So that's some of our work too, and some of our volunteers do that.
Now, how large of a staff? It sounds like quite a bit of work. How large of a staff do you work with?
Well, we have paid staff of two full-time, and we have unpaid staff, bless them, of about 8 or 9 office workers. Plus, we have a gentleman who is 73 who goes to the food bank with another volunteer on Mondays, and we have another retired gentleman who picks up food from bread from Boulanger. We only do the best in Cupertino. It's day old. And we have another volunteer who picks up produce that is not quite as nice as it could be, but still very usable, one day a week. And we have another volunteer who does special projects. And we have a volunteer bookkeeper. So we have a lot of volunteers that do wonderful work.
So really it is a volunteer-based program, because with a staff of only 2 people, you can't accomplish all the things I'm sure that you want.
No, and what the volunteers do is bring to CCS a lot of skills that 2 people wouldn't have, and a lot of ideas, and they also spread the word about CCS. Cupertino is a wonderful city with responsive citizens who really care, and a lot of businesses that really care. I feel very privileged to be here, because it seems like whenever I have something that I need for someone, there's a way to get it, and they just are great.
Well, you mentioned the donations and things, but what other ways is CCS subsidized?
We get funds from United Way. We're part of their emergency assistance network. What that means is that they give us money for direct assistance only, and so we issue those in the form of vouchers for either one-time partial rent assistance, utilities, food, or gasoline, or whatever the particular need is. Because of the United Way funds is why we serve West San Jose, because they wanted us to include that service area. The Salvation Army gives us funds for direct assistance. Churches give us funds. Individuals give us funds. We do write proposals, and then we have our wonderful hoedown every year. And where everybody participates. We have about 35 volunteers on the committee that make it happen, and our wonderful city council and other dignitaries serve the food. So it's a way of raising about 1/3 of our budget.
That was a recent event.
Yes, it was wonderful.
How successful were you?
We raised over $22,000.
That's tremendous. Now, when we come back, we'll talk about the problems that face Cupertino and how Cupertino Community Services works within our community.
Hi-ho, this is Kermit the Frog, and this is one of my very favorite places to visit, a forest. You know, forests are great places to go if you want to camp or hike or just admire the beautiful greenery.
So this is a forest, huh? Wow.
Ooh, check out all these leaves.
Wait till we tell them back home at the South Pole.
As I was saying, forests are great places for everyone to visit. Not only that, forests are where we get wood, and forests help keep our air and water clean.
Smell that fresh air, Millie.
Forests are also home to lots of different animals. Unfortunately, these days our forests are in serious trouble. They're being threatened by development and by people who don't respect them. It's important to save our forests, and there are things you can do to help. To find out, write to Forests, National Wildlife Federation, Washington, D.C. 20036.
Hey, let's get a picture with the talking frog.
Remember, forests are more than trees.
And we're back on Take 53. I'm Carol Frausto, and here with me is Sally Brennan of Cupertino Community Services. We're going to be talking about CCS and how they work in our community. Sally, on that subject, can you just tell me about some of the problems that you see facing Cupertino right now?
Well, some of them are problems that are facing almost all communities. The cost of housing in the Bay Area and in Cupertino particularly is skyrocketing, and no longer can young families afford to live in Cupertino. And the older people who are now living here, if they sell their homes, couldn't afford to rent here. And some of our people on fixed incomes are having trouble making ends meet. If a young family does manage to live here, usually both members of the family, or the husband and wife, work in order to make ends meet. If one of them should lose their job, they usually don't have a reserve or a long reserve in order to continue to meet their obligations. So they find themselves in a tight fix. That's where we try to help. But our help is temporary, and I think what Cupertino has to decide is whether or not they want to become a community of very well-to-do people who maybe works elsewhere, and then their teachers and their firemen and the people who serve them in Cupertino will travel from elsewhere, and then we'll have more traffic, which I see as one of our problems too. And these are issues that Cupertino observes and deals with the results of, but can't do anything about, basically, unless we do advocacy or unless the people in Cupertino decide they want to make that change.
I see. I know that most people could never imagine coming to ask for some kind of help. What type of people do you see coming to CCS for assistance?
Oh, they look like you and me, for the most part. You wouldn't think that they were people who needed assistance. I had a young woman who was in her mid-30s. She had 2 children, and she'd been living in Cupertino for 10 years. Her husband had made $80,000 a year, and he came home one day and said, I have a lover back east, and I'm just very comfortable with the situation, and I just wanted you to be aware of it. And of course, she wasn't comfortable with it, and so she divorced him. And because she did, he was very angry and fought the divorce. When she finally came to us, she had sold her car, she'd sold some of her furniture in order to make ends meet and to make house payments. She was about to lose her house because she was 2 months behind, and nowadays they aren't too patient about that. He was being very, very reluctant to assist her because he was so angry with her. And the lawyers were impatient to continue with the divorce proceedings unless she paid them. She had no parents because they were killed when she was 3, and she lived with her grandparents who died before she was grown. So she had no family. She was an only child. When she came to us, we helped her with food. We helped her with one house payment, which was relatively low because they'd been here for 10 years. And she sold her house and moved to a cheaper location. But without that one-time assistance, she would have been out on the street. And she had been in the position of helping other people previously. And she told me she'd go anywhere, anytime to say what CCS does and how it helped her. That's the kind of story, the kind of people that we see, plus people who have had companies that they've worked for fold, or who've had cutbacks. And we all know a couple years ago when Silicon Valley was having a lot of problems with that, and where one of the people in the family lost their jobs and they just couldn't make ends meet. The stories are varied, but they all come down to the same thing. They need help. They need food. They need help with rent, perhaps, or they need help with resources. They need to know agencies that can help them.
I see. Now, we've talked a lot about the adults, and we haven't really talked much about the children in these situations. What kind of special circumstances or problems does this present when there's a child involved?
Well, oftentimes when a child isn't sure of food or of the basic necessities, it does affect them very deeply. Or when they have to go to school with holes in their shoes, or not as nice of clothing as a lot of the people in Cupertino have, it affects them deeply. So it's something that I'm very conscious of, and I think that's the one part that touches me the most. About half of the clients that we see are children, or that we serve. And that's because we see a lot of single moms. A lot of the situations that present themselves are due to divorce, due to abusive situations with spouses, usually the men, are due to death, being disabled, things that sometimes we have no control over. And when we do the screening process, we try to make sure that we allow the person to tell us the whole situation. If someone comes to you and asks you for food, chances are there are other things happening in their lives that they need help with. And sometimes it's just someone to listen with a caring heart and to just be there. And they go out, hopefully, not only with food, but feeling a little bit better about themselves and feeling a little bit like there's someone out there that cares.
How often do you get cases in that you would say are extreme emergencies? I know that you said that all cases that you take through your screening process are emergencies, but how often do you get those serious, emergency cases?
Well, we don't get many life-threatening types of cases, but most of the people who come to us are out of food. And when we give them a voucher, most of them do not have change in their pocket to help get a little bit more than the voucher. And so that is a pretty serious emergency. And when the kids come in, and you can tell they're straight out honest, and you know how hungry they are, it's important to have the food there, to give it to them now.
And you have it right in your office?
We have a pantry in our office, and people donate food to us. The Kiwanis, the Cupertino Kiwanis, take us every 3 months to the Price Club, and I get to spend their money, $300 worth. It's so much fun. It's really great. And I buy the things that we don't get. The donated food makes our vouchers go further. We give a small voucher for Lucky's, and the people can go in and use that for the things that we don't get donated, and for the things that we don't have enough room for in storage. So they can buy milk and eggs and some meat, and then we have canned goods, and we have 2 refrigerators, so we keep some produce. The people at the Cupertino Community Gardens have a plot, the Grays, and they raise vegetables for us every year, and so we have fresh vegetables to give to the people.
That's great.
Very responsive community.
Sounds like it. Now, I know that we talked earlier, and it's a really wealthy community in Cupertino, and it's hard to believe, and people probably don't believe, that there are people that can come from this area and need your assistance. Do you see that the numbers are, in these people that need aid, do you see it rising?
I wish I could say no. I see the needs changing. I see the people who need help a longer period of time. It seems like that we have trained some of our people for jobs that are no longer existent. It seems like some of the people that come to me have little resources in themselves. They may have learned how to do construction work or electronic assembly, or be a real crackerjack secretary. But then there are so many people who are well educated who are being pushed down the ladder that they're taking those positions. And so these people who only have high school diplomas are being pushed further down, and they're into the service jobs. Now, those service jobs don't pay enough to live on. If you make $5 an hour, you make $200 a week, and you don't take home that $200, but let's just suppose you do. That would be $800 a month. The cheapest apartment you can get in Cupertino, which is a 1-bedroom studio, goes for $650. That leaves very little for you to spend on other things. And you have to have utilities, you do have to eat, and you would have to have transportation, and that doesn't even count clothing, or any of the extras. So you can't make it on that type of income. And so the job the type of paying jobs that we have available oftentimes aren't enough to make ends meet and live here.
Do you work with job training for your
We have referrals
clients?
for job training, and we are always looking for more. And we have job referrals, and we work with the temporary agencies, and they send us job referrals. And we work with the Ascent program with the Queen of Apostles Church, and they're wonderful. What we try to do is not duplicate any services, but make sure that we know of the services that are available. And if anybody's out there with jobs, please call me, because the best gift I can give someone is a job to get them on their feet.
right.
And if we have people who are transient, who don't have phones, we do act as a message service, and we put an envelope up with their name on it, and then they can get messages from CCS, and then they can call them. And so we have placed several people that way.
That's great. Sally, when we come back, I'd like you to tell me what you see as the most important role for your job.
In New York, the winters are tough and long. So I spend a lot of hours in the gym. Many of the things I did on the basketball court while I was growing up were the results of dreaming them, or just laying back and then imagining myself floating in the air and thinking about the hundreds of different ways that I can make the ball go in. I worked very hard. Let me tell you, I made a lot of sacrifices trying to be as good as I can be. And I did not want to do anything that was going to short-circuit that. Drinking, drugs, it doesn't make sense. I knew that they were counter to what I was working for. It just doesn't make sense.
Back on Take 53, I'm Carol Frausto here with Sally Brennan of Cupertino Community Services. Now, this is a question that I've really been dying to ask you. How do you deal with your own life and have time to see all these people that you mentioned coming to your office and visiting? And I mean, how do you fit it into a day?
We have 80-hour days at Cupertino Community Services.
That's what I thought.
No, in reality, I have a lot of help from the volunteers, and I do spend a lot of time that is my own time, because I do truly enjoy my job. I enjoy making a positive difference and being part of that whole process. I love hugs, and I get a lot of them. I get a lot of them from people who help me give, and I get a lot of people, I charge hugs, that's my price. And that gives me a lot of energy. It's a good thing to have. I think that without the help I would get from the volunteers and from the other people, there'd be no way that I could do what gets done. And so it's the helping hands that make it happen.
Do you have any volunteers that maybe were past CCS clients?
Yes, we always offer that as an option. When we talk to people, we say, when you get back on your feet and you'd like to do something, think about what you would have liked to have seen in that closet and bring us a bag of it. The other thing that we do is we have a clothes closet, and it's always in need of straightening or sorting, and a lot of our people come and help us do that. There are so many people that want to help back, and I think by letting that happen, you also let them keep their dignity and their self-respect. I think charging someone's self-respect for a bag of food is too high a price to pay.
I agree. Where is your office located?
Right now, we're in donated space at the First Baptist Church on Miller Avenue. Soon, when the community center gets built, we will be in the community center, and we'll have lots of space, and I won't be storing food under my desk.
Oh, that's great. How can the public help you and CCS make a positive difference?
Oh, there are so many ways. If they'd like to volunteer, we need drivers to drive our seniors. I must warn everybody that it is addicting. The seniors are so appreciative and such lovely people to deal with. We need volunteers to do various and sundry things, and if someone comes and talks to me, I can usually find a way that they can help. We can always use financial donations. I can always use usually whatever anybody has to offer. There's a place for it. I can find a home for just about anything. We work real closely with other agencies such as the Battered Women's Shelter, Star House, which is a residential place for boys. We work with any agency if you have a donation, I can find a place for it. So if you have an idea, call me at 255-8033, 9 to 12 and 1 to 5, and I'll find a way that you can help.
That's great. You just had your recent successful hoedown. Do you have any other future fundraisers planned?
Our next one is the Colors of Christmas. We'll have a Christmas tree at Valco Park, and there will be white lights on that Christmas tree. And for a donation, you can change the white lights to the colors of Christmas, and those donations will go to CCS to help people.
Well, that's great. Sally, I really enjoyed this interview. It's been very interesting, and I'm really sorry that our time is up, but I'd like to thank you for joining me, and I hope you continued success with your program.
I'd like to thank you and all the people who make CCS a success.
You're welcome. And I'd like to thank my guest, Sally Brennan, the Executive Director of Cupertino Community Services. And I'd like to thank you for joining me, Carol Frausto, as I continue to explore the issues that shape your community on Take 53.